It's quite a nice day outside today, and we're sat out here in the van. And the reason we're sat out here in the van, the key doesn't open the door anymore. It just spins round and round and round, and the bit that the key goes into has decided it's deceased. So I've had to take all the door panel off so I could get the door open, and now I don't know what to do because now I can't lock the van, otherwise I won't get back in again. So I'm going to have to just leave it open. There's not much else I can do. I'm going to have to order a new bit for the door, and until it gets here I can't, lock it up on a night. But I don't think there's much chance of theft. They do have a coded 4-digit ignition gadget, so that will prevent that kind of theft, but it's whether anything gets stolen out the van. So I've just got tools and the piece off the door in here so that I can get some, it's just going to have to stay in here, but anything valuable has now been taken out. Another thing I want to mention with the van, I don't yet have a split charge relay on the van connecting the back batteries to the front to charge them. They're just permanently connected, which means if we used anything in the back that flattened the batteries at the back of the van, it would also flatten the battery for starting the van, and that's not a good idea. So I thought it's about time I got a split charge relay, and I thought I'm not going to buy one off eBay. They're too basic, they're too simple, they don't do much. And I had one of these, actually I had 3 of these LCD displays, and I thought, well, I'll have a split charge with a voltage display on it. I thought that wouldn't be such a bad idea, because if I'm going to use a controller on this to check the voltage of the batteries, I might as well have it display the batteries at the back, press a button, display the batteries at the front, and do the charge, and it can display whether or not it's charging or not. And I thought another nice feature would be if you can set the voltage trip point that it connects the back and the front together. You don't want it connecting immediately because that strains your alternator, because it's having to charge the battery that's just started the van and the batteries at the back. So you need it to charge the ones at the front first, and then when that's got to a full charge, that's when it needs to switch over and start charging the ones at the back once that voltage has been reached. And you might want to choose that voltage yourself. You might want it to be 13 volts, you might want it to be 13.5, whatever you want to be able to set it and choose. So I thought to myself, what's the cheapest controller that you can buy that can measure the voltage of the batteries and also control the LCD screen? And the answer is these little Arduino Pros, which run on an ATmega 328. They can measure a couple of analog voltages, and from that you can display the voltages, you can set the trip points, it can use spare pins to trigger the relay to join the front to the back batteries. And so that little chip there on that board just costs a couple of quid, and it's probably cheaper to buy it on that board than it is to just buy the chip on its own. And it's same with the screens. These are quite popular in hobby communities, and because of that it's brought the price of them down to that's such an acceptable level. You can build a commercial grade product for pennies. So that's the basis of the system. Here's a nice screen, which is optional, you don't have to have a screen on something like this. And then this, which can measure the voltages, store the voltages. It can wait a couple of minutes after the engine's been started, so that there's time for the engine to warm up and stabilise a bit, and the alternator can put some charge back into the main battery before worrying about the ones at the back. And you could set that delay from 10 seconds to 10 minutes, you know, it's the amount of time. You might not want no time at all, it just doesn't matter, but some things want that kind of time before you start drawing this extra power from them. So there's the answer, 3 to 8 and an optional screen. So there we have a bit of test software on the screen just displaying numbers, which sat there with 1.9 on it. Should be able to change that if I just go touching things over here, it's not connected, but as you can see we can display just about whatever we want. So you can display the battery voltage of the front and the back, and there's a spare bit of screen at the bottom for the status that it's currently have, so underneath it could say charging or waiting or anything it needs. And so I think this will be a much better split charge system, and it can be all bolted up into a nice tiny waterproof case. The screen wiring can be extended, so the split charge relay and the controller can be mounted at the front of the van somewhere in the engine compartment, and then a skinnier cable running back to one of these LCDs that can be in a nice little mounting something, or just mounted somewhere with a hole cut for it, whatever takes anyone's fancy. They're not that big a thing, as you can see, they're small enough to mount just about anywhere you want. I mean, there's a cup holder for comparison, and it fell off. So yeah, there we are, that's the kind of thing I was thinking of. The screen has backlighting as well, which it can be wired to the car, van, whatever's wiring, so that the backlighting comes on at night when the car's on, or not if you don't wish. It can all be made into kind of, you know, a menu system where you can choose these options. I just think it's better than a cheap 20 quid split charge controller, when for 20 quid or less you can have all this. You know, it's just better, so much better. So I'll go finish it. Oh, there's some old test code that it had. You saw the 1234 at the bottom, and with a couple of buttons added, so you can press a menu button and then a scroll through the options button to set the voltage that you want the charge to trip over. So if anybody's interested and, you know, might want one of these yourself, just leave a message under the video on YouTube, not on Facebook or forum posts or anything, but on the video on YouTube. That's where I'll see them and get around to, you know, answering any questions there is. But I think the main things it needs to do is to have adjustable voltage that it trips over, and an overcharge cutout as well. I don't think you're ever going to overcharge your batteries, but considering that leisure batteries don't want charging quite as high as car batteries for starting the engine, starter batteries have a higher charge voltage than leisure batteries. But if you just have a relay that says switches over at 13 volts, it's going to go all the way to the top voltage, which is technically a bit higher than you want for leisure ones. It dries them out, it causes them to gas off the, you know, the acid. So having a higher cut-off voltage, I think, might also help the batteries at the back. You know, once they're charged to what the manufacturer calls for them, you know, 100%, do you want to be charging them to 105, which is what all cheap, nasty, single relay split charge controllers do, unfortunately. But this thing, you can tell it when to start charging and when to stop, and them features are just in software and don't cost anything to add, so they might as well be added. So if there is any interest in this, message under the video and I'll chat more with you about it. Once I've got this one built for myself, which should be in the next few days, if anybody else wants one building up, I'll consider getting some actual circuit boards etched so there can be you know, a much more professional product than a couple of bits stuck together with wires. This is just testing, but this is a fantastic system for testing with, because you can just plug things together and, you know, debug the circuitry and swap things about. You're not making boards or soldering anything together, but once you've got it sorted and you've got it working, then you can make a finished, finalized board, and then you can have it all soldered together, sealed from the weather, and doing its job as it should. So yeah, there we go.